The trick, women, you say? Yes, what of it? There are no greater illusionists than women. They can deceive us in any situation, whether with intent or without, and often simply for the pleasure of it. And they do it with astonishing ease, with breathtaking boldness, and with undeniable finesse. They trick us from morning till night, all of them, yes, even the most honest, the most sincere, the most intelligent. Let me add, sometimes they're forced into it. A man is always stubborn like a fool and whimsical like a tyrant. At home, a husband is constantly throwing absurd tantrums. He's full of ridiculous whims, and when a wife deceives him, she's merely indulging them. She assures him that this or that item costs a certain amount, because he'd scream if it cost more. And she usually wriggles out of trouble with such light and clever means that we're left dumbfounded when we stumble upon the truth. We ask ourselves in amazement, how did we not notice? These words were spoken by Count L., a former minister of the empire, reputed rake and man of exceptional wit. A group of young men listened attentively. He continued, I was once tricked in a way that was both amusing and instructive, by a modest little bourgeois lady. I'll tell you the story as a lesson. At the time, I was Minister of Foreign Affairs and had the habit of taking long morning walks along the Champs-Élysées. It was spring, and I strolled about, greedily inhaling the scent of the first leaves. Soon I noticed that every day I passed a charming woman, one of those striking, graceful creatures stamped with the unmistakable mark of Paris. Was she beautiful? Yes and no. Well proportioned? No, better than that. Her waist was too slender, her shoulders too straight, her chest too prominent, but I prefer such delightful little dolls to the grand frame of the Venus de Milo. Besides, they have a way of mincing along that's utterly irresistible, and the mere flutter of their bustle stirs our deepest desires. It seemed she glanced at me in passing. But with such women, who can say? One can never be sure of anything. One morning, I saw her seated on a bench, a book open in her hands. I hurried to sit beside her. Within 5 minutes, we were acquainted. In the days that followed, our greetings, good morning, madam, good morning, monsieur, soon blossomed into conversation. She told me she was married to a civil servant, that her life was dull, full of worries and short on pleasures, and so on. I told her who I was, by accident, perhaps, or out of vanity. She feigned surprise quite convincingly. The next day, she came to my office at the ministry. Then she began visiting so often that the couriers, having learned who she was, passed the word whenever she arrived, Madame Leon. That's my name. I saw her every morning for 3 months, never once growing tired of her, so skillfully did she vary and intensify her affections. But one day I noticed a pained expression in her eyes, a glimmer of restrained tears. She spoke barely above a whisper, gripped by some hidden anxiety. I begged her to tell me what was wrong. At last, trembling, she murmured, I'm pregnant, and burst into tears. Oh, I must have made a dreadful face and turned pale, as one always does upon hearing such news. You can't imagine the unpleasant jolt to the chest that comes with the announcement of unexpected fatherhood. But sooner or later, you'll know. I stammered. But, you're married, aren't you? She replied. Yes, but my husband's been in Italy for 2 months and won't be back for quite some time. I was desperate to escape responsibility. I said, you must go to him at once. She blushed to the roots of her hair and, lowering her eyes, replied, yes, but... She hesitated, unwilling or unable to finish. I understood, and discreetly handed her an envelope with money for travel expenses. A week later, I received a letter from Geneva. The next week, one from Florence. Then from Livorno, Rome, Naples. She wrote, I feel well, my dear, my beloved, but I look dreadful. I won't let you see me until this is over, you'll stop loving me. My husband suspects nothing. His assignment will keep him abroad for a long time, and I'll return to France only after the birth. Toward the end of the 8th month, I received just 2 words from Venice, it's a boy. Some time later, one morning, she burst into my office, radiant, more beautiful than ever, and threw herself into my arms. And our old love resumed. I had left the ministry. She began visiting my townhouse on Rue de Grenelle. She often spoke to me about the child, but I barely listened, it didn't concern me. From time to time, I handed her a generous sum, saying only, put this in his name. 2 more years passed. She spoke of the boy, of Leon, more and more insistently. Sometimes she cried, you don't love him, you won't even see him. If only you knew how much sorrow that causes me. Eventually, she wore me down. I promised to go the next day to the Champs-Élysées, at the hour she would be walking with her son. But when the moment came, fear held me back. Man is weak and foolish, who knows what might happen in my heart? What if I fell in love with this little being, my son? I stood there, hat in hand, gloves ready. Then I tossed the gloves onto my desk and the hat onto a chair. No, I've decided, I won't go. It's wiser this way. The door flew open. My brother entered. He handed me an anonymous letter received that morning. Warn Count L, your brother, that the lady from Rue Cassette is making a fool of him. He should look into her. I had never spoken to anyone about this long-standing affair. I was stunned and told my brother everything, from beginning to end. Then I added, I don't want to deal with this myself, but please, go and find out. When he left, I thought, how could she have deceived me? Does she have another lover? What do I care? She's young, fresh, beautiful, that's all I ask. She seems to love me, and frankly, she doesn't cost me much. I'm at a loss. My brother returned quickly. The police had given him excellent information about the husband, a civil servant at the Ministry of the Interior. Proper, well-regarded, trustworthy. But married to a very beautiful woman whose expenses seem rather out of step with his modest salary. That was the end of it. My brother tracked down her apartment and, learning she was out, loosened the concierge's tongue with a few coins. Madame D. is a fine lady, and her husband is a fine gentleman. Not wealthy, but not petty either. My brother asked, just to keep the conversation going. How old is her little boy now? She has no child at all, sir. What? No child? What about little Leon? No, sir, you're mistaken. The one born during her trip to Italy, 2 years ago. She's never been to Italy, sir. She hasn't left this house in the 5 years she's lived here. Stunned, my brother kept probing, investigating further. No child. No journey. Nothing. I was deeply surprised, but I couldn't grasp the full meaning of this comedy. I want to be absolutely certain and at peace. I'll ask her to come here tomorrow. Receive her in my place. If she's deceived me, give her these 10,000 francs, and I'll never see her again. Honestly, I'm growing tired of all this. Can you believe it? Just the day before, the thought that I had a child with this woman had thrown me into despair. Now I was irritated, ashamed, offended that I no longer had one. I was free, unburdened by obligations or worries, and yet I was furious. The next day, my brother waited for her in my office. She entered, lively as ever, rushed toward him with open arms, then stopped short upon recognizing him. He bowed and apologized. Forgive me, madam, for being here in my brother's place. He asked me to request an explanation from you, something he found too difficult to do himself. Then, looking her straight in the eye, he said sharply, we know you never had a child by him. After a moment of surprise, she composed herself, sat down, smiled, and calmly replied, yes, I have no child. We also know you've never been to Italy. This time she laughed heartily. Yes, I've never been to Italy. My brother, bewildered, continued. The Count asked me to give you this money and to tell you that it's over. She grew serious again, slipped the money into her pocket, and asked simply, so, I won't see the Count again? No, madam. She seemed mildly annoyed and added, quite calmly, too bad. I loved him very much. Seeing how quickly she accepted her fate, my brother smiled and asked, tell me now, why did you invent this long and elaborate trick with the journey and the child? She looked at him with surprise, as though he'd asked something foolish, and replied, oh, it was just a clever little scheme. Surely you don't think a poor, insignificant bourgeois woman like me could have kept Count L, a minister, a man of stature, wealth, and charm, for 3 whole years without tying him to me somehow? Now it's over. Too bad. It couldn't last forever. But for 3 years, I managed to hold on to him. Give him my sincere regards. She stood up. My brother pressed on. And the child, was he borrowed? Of course. My sister's boy. She lent him to me from time to time. I bet she's the one who gave me away. And all those letters from Italy? She sat down again, laughing freely. Oh, those letters, that was a whole poem. After all, the Count was Minister of Foreign Affairs. And, the rest? The rest is my secret. I don't want to compromise anyone. And with a slight, mocking smile, she bowed and exited, completely unbothered, like an actress whose role had just ended. And Count L. concluded, with a touch of moral reflection. So much for trusting little birds like her.